All right, hey everyone. Oh, the way I have my collar makes me look funny. It's because my sweatshirt's pushing up. So anyway, having a really awesome homemade coffee, and yeah. So this channel, I know I wish I've had some interaction on it in the last month or two, which is kind of exciting. But I wish I could have been more forthcoming over the last year, but I've just been so busy working on getting myself positioned and trying to help a couple really good friends get positioned as well. Sorry about that. It's super cold out this morning. I thought I'd do it from my car because inside my house there's all kinds of distractions, and yeah, and it's too cold to do it on the road. It's early morning here out here on the west coast of the United States. It's in the 30s, which it does happen this time of year. So there's 2 times a year that the temperature really drops out here in the Pacific Northwest. It's the very end of October. You get your first shock of, oh my gosh, crazy rain, crazy cold. And then the next one is we have had, when you're young, you don't realize it, but once you get in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you realize it's very common that we have Thanksgiving, ice, very low temperatures, pipes burst. They act like it's shocking. Oh, it's once in 50 years, 100 years. No, it's like every year, every other year or something. But you probably saw the screenshot. I found out something really cool. So I like good coffee. I don't like I don't like driving somewhere and being cold in my car and spending a couple bucks on gas and then $6-7 for the coffee. And I'm not gonna not tip. Like, I know that workers who deliver food, whether it's coffee, sandwiches, or whatever, they are paid a very low wage. Some people may think it's a high wage, but when you calculate in that they don't get 40 hours a week, that they have to work 3-hour shifts and 5-hour shifts, and they don't get breaks. Like, that's why they get 5-hour shifts, because out here in Washington State, you can work 5 hours without a lunch break, without a 10-minute break. So the employer takes massive advantage of that. So they're not getting to work 10 hours and having 2 to 3 hours of paid breaks in there. So they drive, spend their own money, get ready for work, and their base wage after taxes is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, for a 5-hour shift, $60. So, are you willing to give up your day is planned around a $60 paycheck? So anyway, my point is you can make a really good cup of coffee at home, and something I discovered that, because I don't want to have the sugar bombs and all the fake chemicals. I know you might think I'm crazy, but I discovered if you put about 10 marshmallows in a cup of coffee, those marshmallows, get this, it's crazy, they only have roughly about 20 calories. Yes, it's all sugar, but so you give up 20 calories of sugar to have I call this my marshmallow mocha coffee. And the calorie count is so low. I make it at home, costs me maybe 30-40 cents, and it's a great deal. So all right, I know we're four minutes in, if anybody wants to hop in the chat, but what I want to talk to you about today and come to you, it's not too late. So we are at the tail end of what I foresaw coming, and I've actually been on a few podcast channels. They're not super big, but they're decently big. And my predictions have mostly come true. And I'm not trying to go, oh, okay, I'm the prediction king. But what I've been predicting for the last, I would say, 2 years. Yeah, it started late summer 2022. I am going to drink this coffee because I only had a half cup earlier, and I'm out here in my car. I got the heat on. It's in the low 30s. Trying to heat my car up. Okay, Dow 43,000 and NASDAQ Composite, not NASDAQ 100, So Dow 43,000, NASDAQ Composite 19,000. I think those are in the rearview mirror. So, and you're like, oh, why didn't you tell us about this sooner? Okay, well, what if I would have told you a year ago or 2 years ago that you're like, you wouldn't believe me. I'm like, okay, there's 10, 20, 30% more run, right? So at this point, I'm only giving you information where we are only 1 to 2% off the highs. So I'm telling you right now that these market prices, even if the Fed and the Treasury goes on full print mode, so you always have to look at, okay, where you're at and what are the percentages of going this way and that way, okay? So let's say Jason's wrong, he's telling us a bunch of BS. Even if the government goes on full print mode, lowers rates to, I don't think they'd go to zero again, maybe 2%. What are they at, 4.7 now? They were at 5.3 or 2 or something. Used to be, it's so weird. Like now it used to be quarter point increments my whole life. When I traded bonds and stuff, the Fed was at 5. The Fed was at 5.25. I don't understand this range thing they tell you now. But even if they were to go pro keeping the markets propped up, these are still the highs. Could they go 5-10% higher? Yes, but I can almost guarantee you either tomorrow or in a week or a month, you always have to look, you have to have your plan of what the spread is, that you're going to be able to get it for 10-20% less. And so the market cap and the PEs on all these stocks, the American stock market has been the place to be. I did a bunch of research myself over the last week and realized there's only one other market that's kept up on a dollar basis, and that's the German DAX. And I shouldn't even say kept up. It's performed about 50% as well as the United States stock market. Most of the others, so if you've been in these other countries, like large countries like the UK, China, South America, Japan's a little bit different because the value of their money has gone down so much. But most of these economies or stock markets have not experienced the explosion that we have in America. So in America, we are in a special situation where we've experienced 50, 100%, 200% gains in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? I mean, how amazing. You put your money in, and like if you're wrong, you go up 50%, right? If you choose the right 2 or 3 stocks, you're up 200%. Like, oh, come on. So we're at the peak. We're at the peak in the financial cyclical system, okay? And you're like, well, who's this guy? Well, this is a guy that's actually been looking at it, let me think here, since 1980. Yep, 1980. I know that seems crazy. What's that, 44 years? And you're like, what? Yep, I have journals, I have notebooks, and things of that sort. So I fully believe we're at the peak. Now, here's the thing, the caveat is the system has decided that it can print digitally way more than it ever has in the past, even compared to the 2008, 9, 10 bailout. So this was something that didn't exist pre that. A lot of people don't remember the 1999, 2000 collapse. I do want to enjoy my coffee. Many stocks went down 57, 60, 70, 80%. Intel is one that I can think of. I think even Amazon in the early years. AMD, trying to think of a few of the computer makers. I mean, they were up there and they made sense. I owned their laptops, Compaq, some of these others. So, but back then, the system didn't recognize the print money to the moon system and provide it to these companies, provide it through apps or whatever to the buyers to buy these stocks, buy their products, and create a false narrative. Let's just not go down, and create bottom line profits that wouldn't have really existed, right? So I've owned a number of businesses, and 2 of them have been restaurants. And it's really opened my mind to a lot of things. In a restaurant, you can have top line sales, let's just say of X, okay? And let's say X is kind of a medium bad time. Well, guess what it does? X sales pays the lease. It pays for the product, and it actually makes payroll. But it doesn't pay you anything. It doesn't pay, like, you're having to micromanage this baby like you can't believe, because X only covers everything and keeps the ship, upright from sinking. It doesn't have a hole yet in the bow. But if X was to go to X minus 5% or minus 10%, so 90% of X, like, it wouldn't take very long where everything's leaking out of the system. You'd have to start laying people off. You'd start buying less input items, whether it's food products or paper products or whatever. And then the whole system starts trickling and having issues, right? Because that trickles down to all kinds of businesses. I know it seems crazy. Like a 5 to 10% change in top line numbers can be very dramatic to how a business operates. And I'm talking on a small business mind, and I know that big corp has been allowed. I mean, I had almost 2 years of business classes at an accredited business school telling us how big corp, and I can't think of all the names that they called it, like if there was 3 running it, a certain industry, or 5 or 10. That the coolest thing about America is they don't support that, and they fight that. No, that's out the window now, right? I mean, come on, we got Walmart and Costco running 70-80% of all retail sales. Maybe they tell you something else, but it's not reality. So you've got two companies. In the past, it was like you never wanted one company to be above 10%. Well, Apple has like 50-60% of the phone market. Really? Come on, man. Nobody can step up and compete against them. So where I'm going with this is, on the upside, they keep pushing it up. And however they push it up, it's all kinds of different ways, right? But there's lots of ways it can come down. And something that I've really realized in the last couple months, and I thought it was coming in 2022. It didn't come in 2022. It came briefly, if you remember, in the fall. House sales crashed. Stocks crashed. I shouldn't say crash. Whatever term you want to use. They all came down. Prices came down. Interest rates went to 7.5%, 8%. And I made a really bold claim. I'm on a couple podcasts, and it's kind of funny because some of them actually dissed me. I made claims back when interest rates were 5%, late 2021, early 2022, 4 or 5%. I said, we're going to start seeing 7 and 8% here as the norm. Well, every time the damn interest rates dropped down to 6.5, I was on a couple of them. They're like, oh, you said 7 to 8. I'm like, okay, so interest rates dropped down to 6.5 for like a few weeks and then back up. I'm like, you can't, so you're going to tell me a chart. So I claim the chart's going to go like this over the next few years. And the chart does a bunch of this, back up there, down and back up. And you're going to have me out. Oh, well, you said 7 to 8%, and we're down here at 6.25. And then like 2 weeks later, it was at 7.25 or something. Like, I'm like, okay, thanks. I'm like, yeah, if you want to look at individual blips on a screen, yeah, you can prove me wrong all day long. So, but I don't think people have in their minds processed how dramatic this is. And I'll just give you a really quick example, because I've had a number of friends reach out to me about what they should do about different types of financing that they've been running a certain way in their life for the last few years. One of them is cars, okay? So, and let's not get into some, debate about car prices. I get it. They don't make sense. They're not made as good, but they're all in on the game. Prices are going up 10% a year and stuff. But just think about this for a second. So, in the last few years, whatever you want to call it, 3, 4, 5 years, you could get a car loan at 0, 1, 2%. A lot of them at 0.9. Let's just call them 0, because 1% is very small away from 0. And ask me any questions you guys want. I see we got some viewers, we got some likes. Thank you so much. So a $30,000 car loan at 0% interest over 60 months is $500 a month. 500 times 60, 30,000. Yeah. Okay. 1%, it's $520 a month, 510, 515. Okay. Now we have, this is just car loans, not home loans. We have car loans in the 6, 7, 8, 9% range. Okay. When you put a 7, 8% car loan on a car over 60 months and they're no longer 30,000. So just a few years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 4, you could get a really nice new car for $500 a month, and you're paying that baby off in 60 months. So we're not talking about leases. We're not talking about 72-month loans, 84. So let's focus on apples to apples. Okay, at 6, 7, 8% today, that same car is like $50,000. It's not 0% anymore. So if you do a $50,000 car loan in that car range over 60 months, that car payment is around $1,000 to $1,100 a month. That's what people have to get their mind around. You can't just look at it and go, oh, I used to have to reach in my pocket, pull out $30,000, buy this car I wanted. Now I have to pay $45,000 or $50,000, which is still painful and hurts. But to the layman, to the non-billionaire, to the non-millionaire from their stock portfolios who've just gone to the moon, they are having to pay double of 4 or 5 years ago. The same car is $1,000 to $1,100 a month. That was $500 a month. And that's what people aren't getting their mind around. And I've been on these podcasts and I said, time is coming. And they, sales went up in the spring and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, rates went down to 6.25, 6.5. Springtime, there's always more sales. I'm like, but as you keep chipping away, I just got a notice in the mail here where I live that, we've always had 2, 3, 4% inflation on our utilities. And so when I see these other people around the country complaining about their utilities go up, I don't mean to sound jaded, but I'm like, oh, okay, sucks for you. Let me go do my thing. Well, we got a thing in the mail about a month ago that January of 2025, 2 months away, are out here where I live, natural gas, I don't know what percentage that heats the houses, 20, 30, 40, 50%. It's going up 22% in 1 year. And then electric is going up 8%. And you're like, oh, that's just your power bill. Okay, well, I can tell you right now, I didn't have to pay a power bill, and this was living in apartments. The first time I had to pay a power bill was 1999. So the first 10 years I lived away from home, I didn't have to pay a power bill. The landlord paid it because it was so cheap. It was in the rent. You paid $200 to $300 rent. Power bill was $3 to $5. Sometimes I would see it, but now it's $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, and you're talking about 10 to 20% increases on that. So I got someone here saying, "Oh, truth wins every time." You've been part of the channel for a long time. Glad I use electric space heaters. Yeah, I closed off 20% of my house yesterday. I rolled up beach towels and I stuffed them around because my doors are kind of cheap and they were cut high with a gap. And when I took out the insane 80s shag carpet and put in nice laminate flooring, it left a bigger gap. So I closed them off, put rolled towels under there. Oh my gosh, I went in there this morning because actually this morning it was 31 outside. There was a light frost. In that part that I closed off, it was 44 degrees. I'm like, can you imagine heating 20% of your house at 44 degrees? So, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I knew it was very cold overnight, but my furnace came on very little. And I'm like, that's because I'm only heating, and I actually created another situation. So I'm only heating about 60, 70% of my house, which is fine. I get it. People, you're broke, you're poor, whatever. I'm like, well, there's no reason to heat, 30% of my house that I literally never go in, or go in maybe once a week for a few minutes in the wintertime. Now in the summertime, I just keep it all open. But so what I'm trying to tell you is we're in the window. Everything has changed. The interest rates have flipped. The biggest thing that people didn't catch on to that I felt was the big one, and I was waiting for it, is the time that the Fed would cut the interest rates. and 5 and 10-year rates would go up. And that occurred 5 weeks ago. So that was your signal. So the signal was 5 weeks ago. So the good news is you've still had, prices have still held in there, even gone up. But the big warning shot was back when the Fed cut rates and borrowing rates went up. So we are going to be subject to these 6, 7, 8, 9% rates, houses and cars. And yes, the people who have, $500,000 in the bank account, $2 million in their 401k, to them it's no big deal. They're like, oh, okay, pay an extra $5K. Well, the majority of the people out there, wow, this is crazy. I'm getting these alerts I've never seen before, and I'm just talking general talk. I'm getting multiple little triangles, alert triangles saying, message held for review. We will post it soon. If you need to make a car decision, people are like, oh, okay, drive an old car. Everybody's got effing advice, from their perspective. F that. You don't know. Maybe that person just signed up and maybe they moved and now they've got to drive 20, 30 miles to work where it was only 5 miles before. And like, oh, move closer to work. You're like, well, I lived closer to work, but it was $2,500 a month. I needed rent that was $1,500, so I had to move out here. So maybe they made the decision, I'll save $1,000 on rent and I'll get a $300-$400 car payment. So yeah, I live farther away, but I have a nicer car. So stop judging everybody from your own lens, okay? I'm just telling you that things are going to start getting tight, that things are going to start changing. So try to look at your future 6, 12, 24 months out and go, what do I need to have taken care of right now? What do I need to have with a fixed payment I can trust and it won't affect me? Because, if you're talking 20% heating bills going up, if you're talking car payments doubling, if you're talking insurance going up 20, 30% a year for the last few years, so that's 100%, that's a double. The money is getting tight. I don't think you can go knock at your employer and go, hey, yeah, remember 2 years ago, everything was crap and you gave that 15% pay raise to everybody? Yeah, I need that every year. They're going to look at you and go, what? You think we have enough money to up payroll to give everybody, the base pay people, not bonuses, 15% a year? And you're like, hey, my life's gone up. So that's why everybody's out there stressed out, scrambling, looking for a side hustle, looking to up their game, up their job. And so I just want to tell you the financial, in my opinion, and I haven't said it for a long time because I kept watching until like 33 of the triggers told me that the end is near. The end is near. Meaning, be very careful if you're playing any asset financial game. It's going to be more 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, whatever you're involved in. So it's very difficult to play that from the profit side. Trust me, I've been a financial trader, a futures trader, a commodities trader, a bond trader. And when you get into the mode that we are in now, that used to come every 5, 6 years. This one's way overdue. This is like 12, 13, 14 years. So in my meager lifetime, this is a gigantic time frame. But when they come, it's almost impossible to play them from the side of 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, because it's not a 2-step. It tricks you. It'll go down 1 step, up 1 step. You're like, okay, we're still in it. And then it'll go down 2 and you're like, okay, that's okay. I can handle this. It goes up 1. You're like, okay, hang in there. Take a deep breath. It goes down another 2. But when you look back like 3, 6, 12 months, you're like, oh my gosh, it's been on a 3 down, 2 up. I'm down. I'm losing everything. So truth every time. It's the only person commenting. I'll use the F word. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. I said everything is odd. So should we withdraw our IRAs? I can't tell anybody because I appreciate your question. And the reason I used to give advice, but I realized it was always advice from my perspective, right? So everybody's a different age. Everybody has different long-term goals. Everybody has a different time horizon. Everybody has a different sized emergency fund, different income in relation to expenses. I would say if you've got a time horizon of 5+ years, 5, 10, 15. Like it's very hard to get in the timing game. So, selling now and buying back in, that's the hardest thing. I learned that in my life. It's very, very hard. People think it's easier, like, oh, you sell at the peak and buy back in. No, because most of the time you don't catch the peak. And even if you do, you're so proud of yourself, you're happy. So when it drops down, you don't buy back in till it's almost come back to that peak, or maybe even past it. And you're like, oh man, you could have just stayed in. So I think we're going to have a longer period than normal of sideways down action. Now, this is only caveat. They don't go into at this point, it takes tens of trillions printing mode. They prove that because COVID took high single digits for us to survive. The previous one in 2008, they only had to print single digit trillions, like 1, 2, 3. Like you have to analyze. They'll tell you certain numbers, but if you analyze how it was pumped in all around to the banks and the stock market and lending institutions, so it was, a few billion in 2008. It was tens of billions in 2020, 2021. They'd have to go to tens, hundreds of billions this time around. And they could. It's just paper. It's digits on a computer now. That's why the world is getting very angry. If you pull up the TLT, yeah, that's the 10-year. You can trade the 10-year on a smoothed average. But if you realize that treasury bonds have been getting cremated, and realize that 90% of the treasury bills and bonds in America are owned outside. Okay, when the Fed starts upping interest rates, they've taken 30, 40% hits on these. And they don't get to own just paper bills, okay? The rest of the world has to own treasuries. We force that on them. And we tell them they're as good as, it used to be as good as gold, good as backed by the United States. Well, imagine if you loaned the United States, and by loaned, I'm like, okay, you sold them $1 billion worth of product, whatever that was, little plastic things or cars, and you got paid in treasury bills or bonds, okay? So, and they pay for 3-4%. So you're like, okay, that's cool. But then it goes down 30%. You're like, what the F? We had 20,000 guys over here working at these factories, sold you guys stuff. You paid us in treasuries, and we just took a 30% haircut. The rest of the world is not happy with how the financial system in America is working. So they are bailing on that. And that's why I've been clamoring since late 2021, early 2022. I said 5 and 10-year rates are going up. And now they went up to 5 and they came all the way back to 3.6, okay? So I looked like I was wrong. I said, no, it doesn't just go up in a straight line. So they went from 1.5 to 5 to 3.5, 3.6. They're at 4.3 now. I think this is if they don't change their game plan. So even if they don't change their game plan, they just go as it's going. That's why I keep saying, I said the 2-year, the Fed rate in the 2-year, guys, is going to go down to 2-3%. And they're like, yay, everything's going to be great. I'm like, look back at charts for the last 50 years. Or you guys are looking at like a blip in history, a COVID blip. We're going to have a spread. There's always been a 2-3% spread. So that means that the 10-year, which a lot of loans, 5 years are car loans, 10 years are mortgages, they're still going to be in the 4, 5, 6% range. Now that's zero risk. That's where you go in and buy it directly from the bank. Now, and the bank can always print the money through the Fed and the Treasury. So if a car loan is going to be 2 points higher than that, or 3, house is going to be 2 points higher. So we are in 6, 7, 8% loan mode. And that may not sound crazy to people, but think about how much prices have gone up. So prices have gone up, and now you have interest on these loans you pay back. Like I said, the car example, 0% 5 years ago on a $30,000 car was $500 a month. Today, that same car, because the price has gone up and interest, it's $1,000 a month, maybe $1,100, $1,200 if you don't have great credit. That money comes from somewhere. It comes from the rest of your budget. That's why you're going to see just a complete decimation of small strip mall businesses, small chains, small businesses. You've got to cut back somewhere. You need your car to get to work. So you're going to take that extra 500 for a while. You'll still live your same lifestyle and party and whatever and all that stuff. And after a few months, you look at your credit card statements and you realize your net take home pay, you're going to go, oh, that shit's got to end. You're not going to go, hey, I'm going to give up the car, but I'm still going to go to Joe and Ted's, barbershop or, bagel shop and sandwich shop and, Bobby's beer. No, those get cut back. That's why you're seeing them. It's going to be a massive contraction, and it's going to look very scary in the cities and the close-in suburbs because all of those small businesses are going to take the brunt of the hit, and it's occurring right now. And so that's more evidence of what's going on. So let's see if anybody else wants to chime in. So truth wins every time. So should I pull out of the market? If you don't want to lose it, that's what I always tell people. When you have money in the stock market, I don't care whether it's an IRA, 401k, whatever. If you are not okay losing half of that, like emotionally, if it'll cause you stress and then give you health issues and things of that sort, at any moment in time in the stock market, you can lose 50%. I know it goes up for years without that occurring, but it'll drop 50% all the time. And sometimes it takes 1-2 years. Sometimes it takes 10 years to recover. I've known people that had serious health issues because they had a very large retirement account drop 50-60% and it didn't recover before they died. That's tough to take because you're like, and even though you doubled or tripled your money, you're like, wow, if I would have taken that out and put it in cash, if I would have put it in whatever. See, I mean, there is CDs and stuff. Banks are paying 4 or 5%. So is that a win? I don't know. Well, it's better than it, sitting in a mattress that earns nothing and can get robbed. So I'm not 100% against having money earning, 4 or 5% interest rates. It's holding you in the game. So everyone has their own time horizon, their own dollar amount, their own plans for the money. So I wanted to have a real talk here with real life finance, what I've wanted to be doing, but and I'll bring to you, I've made a lot of videos I haven't posted live. I had to make a lot of decisions on the fly for the last year and a half. And I didn't really want to bring them and share them because I didn't have time. I was trying to make these decisions. Like even where I landed, where I lived, I had to choose to move out of sharing a house with a good buddy of mine, a really nice house in a nice neighborhood. But I saw the writing on the wall that I was either going to need to be paying 40-50% more to him, or the chance was he was going to move on and someone else is going to want that from me. And I was like, okay, I'm in a position here where my housing cost can go up 40-50% and I have no control over it. So I made a decision to move to, I'll just share it in this video, to a very beat up property, very beat up. And it took me a long time to find it. So you always have to analyze your time. Like maybe I would have been better just working and making $20,000-$30,000 and then paying higher rent or whatever. But I found a place where someone would write me a long-term contract at a very low current market. At the time, it was only kind of low, but now that things have gone up so much, it's a very good deal because I told him I would fix it up with my own labor and materials and stuff, which I did. I'm sorry. I put in I call it a shed, but it's a raised shed, so it's part of my deck. And my cat just thinks it's awesome that he can hop up on. Let me see. I don't want to show everything about my house, but he's up there right now. That's my boy. And he just thinks it's cool as heck that he can be on that. So he's sitting up there chilling. He can see the whole neighborhood. And then he can even get on the roof. And I found out, I go on walks, and I found out he can actually see me almost 500 feet away. So I see him on the roof. He doesn't really see me unless I get like very dramatic. I found out I think cats only can see 200 to 300 feet clear. Everything else outside of that is like just a crazy shadow to him. I've done some tests with him, but oh my gosh, he's up there taking a bath. I literally just put this roof up a few days ago, and he just thinks it's a dream. There he is. So I'm going to enclose that because I haven't had it here. which has been really bad because my tools, I've either had to store them inside my home or they've been outside getting rusted. Truth, it looks like it's only you and me. So I plan on moving back to the Midwest after August. Parenting plan ends. So my home. Oh, you're in Tacoma? Wow, I'd love to meet up with you. I've only met up with a few real YouTubers, so message me somehow. Trying to think what info I can share on here. You can find me. My name's Jason Maggard. That was my old channel name. Find me. I'm out there. I'm out and about. So, yeah, I remember talking to you. Like, it's just it's so crazy. I had a pretty steady, calm life, moving steps forward all up until 2018, 19. And then I made a decision to make a big change in my life. And I made the decision just a couple months before freaking COVID. And that put a dagger in me because I moved out of my sphere of influence where people knew me. I moved to the Midwest, to the South. And it's so hard to explain to people. I'm like, I landed somewhere right before COVID where nobody knew me or could trust me. And I was alone on an island, like, and then I got ill. Thought COVID was completely fake. I got what I just call it. It was, bad flu. I got a really bad flu. The one that came through Seattle, Tacoma. I think it was 2011, 2012. I keep asking people. I'm like, if you ask enough people, they remember it. It was one that knocked you in bed for almost a week. You just had no physical energy or anything. But no, COVID kicked my butt when I was in Nashville. So it was a real emotional and physical challenge for me. And I've been on a recovery mode since then. So, well, my phone's truth wins every time. Like this phone I'm on. I'm on my 5th or 6th phone in the last 3-4 years. Like, if you do anything if you're trying to do stuff out there, man, your phone gets fried and locked up. So I may have you. I have my old phones. They can still power up. But basically, phones only last 6 to 12 months for me. They get fried. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Didn't mean to go down that road. Yes, still the same phone number. Shoot me a text is best because I found out voicemails, a lot of times they drop in my voicemail and then they don't show up. Like, I'll hear it like a week later and it'll say the date. And I was like, it didn't exist there until today, but it says the voicemail was left a week ago. So, yeah. So make decisions for yourself. Don't plan on the rising tide lifting you up anymore. We have come to the end. Mark my words. No more 3.5 10-year interest rates. No more 43,000 Dow. No more $19,000 NASDAQ, or 19,000. Not the 100, because the 100 has the Magnificent Seven that just go to the moon and they're worth more than the world. But the NASDAQ composite, which I think is 3,000 to 4,000 stocks, it hit 19. I think we've been there. So, and a lot of people get upset. They're like, oh, it's already pulled back 2-3%. You went all the way to the high. So if you rode something and it tripled and quadrupled, are you really going to be mad you're getting out at 2-3-4% from the top? So we'll see. All right. I've got Powers. What happened? Someone else asking about EBNM. He does. You have to look for him. He makes it under another channel, does some other truth. And yeah, so if you reach out to me, I can let you know the other channel name. I don't want to share it on here. It's actually his name. So we're kind of following other truth because, well, it's what interests us, right? You search something and you find truth in it and you find what you were looking for. You're not going to just stay there. It's kind of like digging for a bone and you find the bone. You're not going to go, oh my gosh, I'm going to dig for another 10 years to, I've found 10 bones, right? You're not going to dig for another 5 years to find one more bone. So something else tripped your interest, you look into it, start researching it. It's kind of just a fun hobby. So yes, he's on Powers. He's on YouTube. If you look up, I'll just share like meltology and red bricks and old world structures and stuff. You'll find EBNM. That's not the name of his channel, but you'll find him. All right, guys, thank you so much. Look forward to hearing from you. Truth wins every time. I do remember talking with you. I apologize. I've just been on my own mission and stuff for the last few years. So, uh, yeah, and I didn't want to share it because it doesn't make sense. If I told somebody, like I borrowed money on a credit card, a large amount, because it was at 0%. Like, how do you can't tell somebody that? But I had plans for that money and it worked out. So, and now I've got to pay it back though, because I'm going to start charging interest. But I would never give that advice to anyone because it's a serious skill level of, you've really got to manage it, think about it, and you've got to have an exit plan. And I didn't even know if I could execute the exit plan. There's still technically at this point, there's a slim chance, 1% chance or something, I don't pay it off and it becomes an issue for me. But I used it as money because I didn't have access to money. So debt is money. Credit is money. A lot of people don't realize that. They do, but until they really think about it deeply, they don't fully understand it. All right, everybody's out. I see that. So I'm on my own. Peace. Thanks so much, everyone.